What's up YouTube? Welcome to today's video where I'm going to go over my Magic Find character and kind of discuss the differences between an MF calling character and Magic Find character. And this is pretty much because every day I go on Reddit, I see a lot of people calling for changes to Magic Find, but I feel like most people have confused what a Magic Find character actually is and an MF calling character actually is. So I'm going to go over into that. And then we're going to go over into the build that I'm currently running because I have made some changes to it. And a lot of people are always interested in asking, can I play budget Magic Find? Can I play KB instead of Tornado Shot? Do I need a Headhunter to start Magic Finding? And just a bunch of questions like that. And what exactly do I need to start Magic Finding? And it's just something that a lot of people are interested in. But currently my character is at 80% quant and 620% rarity, which is about as good as it's going to get. So first off, there is a huge misconception about Magic Find character and Magic Find caller. A Magic Find character is designed to map generally. The nice part about this is you pretty much just get more drops overall if you're killing monsters. And I do know that monsters don't really drop that much loot and most of it's in chests and stuff like that. But you'll still get divines from monsters. And if you ever run the Strongbox Sextant, the monsters actually drop the loot most of the times because the monsters are the ones that have the increased quant. And all of that quant gets multiplied by your player quant on your Magic Find gear. So Magic Finding is still extremely profitable, and it does allow you to get these currency explosions without having to log out and find a Magic Find caller. Now, a lot of times when you actually play a good build, you will pretty much one-shot the God Touch mob, especially if you're using Headhunter or something like that. You will just do way too much damage in order to react in time to call in a Magic Find caller. And if you're finding a Magic Find caller, that does take a lot of time. You have to go on TFT Discord, you have to find the person, and you have to make sure that the person doesn't steal your stuff. And it's just a lot of stuff that goes into it. Now, a Magic Find caller is pretty much only designed to call God Touch mobs and is not able to map. I mean, technically, you can make a character that is a Magic Find character, and it can also call at the same time. And that's pretty much what my current character is. I have a belt swap that I could put on, and then I put a Culling Strike gem right here, and then I have a Culling. And then I have more rarity now. I think with this setup, I have roughly, I think, what is it? Miscellaneous, 700% rarity. So that's pretty much the difference. You can make a Magic Find character into an MF caller extremely easily, but a Magic Find caller, where you're pretty much just stacking random gear, is not going to be able to map at all. Now, you can see here, this is actually something I found really funny, and this is I'm Exile. So if people actually do the Magic Finding thing on hardcore, so you can see here, he calls his Magic Find caller in, and look what happens. The Magic Find caller gets him 4 divines, but he died. So Magic Find callers are generally very extremely weak. I think this person actually had like negative 70% chaos res or something, and that's just an unfortunate scenario that happens. Now, for my character currently, I have 80 quant and 620% rarity. I am using Tornado Shot in conjunction with Focus Ballista totems, and this is pretty helpful because rare or Headhunter buffs are generally very rare. You don't really get that many Headhunter buffs unless you do Legion or Harbinger or some League mechanics. There's just not many rares left in the game, so it's important to be able to kill mobs. So that's why we end up using Focus Ballista totems still. So we have 2 skills. We put down Focus Ballista, and then we have our main Tornado Shot link. And it's not like our damage is that low. It's 62,481. So it's not like it's a dead character completely. And the character does depend on large clusters for HP pool and resist. And I am focusing on Flask Effect because Flask Effect does buff your Gold Flask and Divination Distillate. And Elegant Hubris has a triple rarity node with Massive Thread of Hope. And we're going to go over the character real fast. So we have the Fractured 2-arrow bow. I'm not really sure how much these bows go for. But the bow is pretty much your main source of damage for this build. So make sure to get as good of a bow as possible. And the more arrows, the better. So this is about pretty much as good of a bow as you're going to get outside of the prefixes. Now, this item over here is the Ascetic or whatever it's called. And the reason we use this is because it gives you a bunch of rarity and quantity. A lot of people mention Biscos. But Biscos actually doesn't work for rare mobs, and you really want to have that quantity and rarity when you run into a God Touch mob. So that's why we have this. So In order to use this item, we have to have a magic item and a normal item, so that's why we use a normal quiver. And you pretty much use this quiver because we can get an additional arrow enchant super easily, or implicit. So we're able to get an additional arrow on the quiver, and then a magic item, we go for the helm. And the helm is super easy to roll because we just roll a 24% rarity on the prefix, and then we craft on the suffix. And the suffix modifier gives us a lot of rarity on slaying rare and unique monsters, and this doesn't actually include it in the tooltip. So next up, we have the 2 Ventors. I do think Ventors are the best because it offers the best between quant and rarity, and it is a gold ring, so this is a ton of rarity. You could technically get more rarity on a reflected jewelry, but I do think that Ventors is better, and it does give you a lot of resist. It allows you to fix your resist, so I'm not running around with actually negative resist. So right here is the same, a bunch of resist and a bunch of quant and rarity. Next up, we have the chest. Now, the chest is pretty easy to craft, even though it looks pretty crazy. You pretty much awaken orb together, elevated attack crit, and elevated item rarity. So that allows you to get level 20 item rarity. And we also have another 20% rarity of items found from slaying unique enemies. So this chest is pretty huge. And then once you awaken orbit together, you can reforge curse with suffixes cannot be changed or caster, and it guarantees you the additional curse, and then you can craft on life, or you can choose the Ashling, and I did choose the Ashling here, and I got lucky and got the right mod off, and I got elemental ailments and chance to avoid being stunned. So very, very deterministic craft over here. Sedima's is pretty much a no-brainer. Quant is still king, I think, in general, especially when you have this much rarity. So you want to stack as much quant as possible, and your glove and blute slots are pretty much mandatory in a sense that they actually give you 30% quant overall. So for the Sedimas, we do use elemental weakness curse on hit, and gold worms, we want to get the enchant with attack and cast speed. And if you're looking for the Abyss gold worm, you probably want like 5% move speed and maybe +2 to auras that you could technically put your enlighten into. And Headhunter is definitely mandatory. You can't really have another option. So right here, Massive Thread of Hope is huge because this thing allows you to get a lot of high value nodes. You can take Finesse without taking this life node. You can take Quick Step if you wanted to. You can take Aspect of the Links. You can take Forces of Nature. You can take Blood Siphon. You can take Harrier. You can take this, Hired Killer. You can even take this 8% Reservation Efficiency node. So this is one of the best jewel sockets possible for this build. And most importantly, it allows you to get these rarity nodes. So say you have a rarity node over here or here or here. It allows you to spend 1 point to get them. Now, this Elegant Hubris does give me 120% rarity. It gets 40% here, 40% here, and 40% here for 120% total. So what this Elegant Hubris does is it converts all of these notables to something different, but in exchange, it makes all of the travel points that aren't notables nothing. So it's called the Price of Glory. And I am taking this node over here because it allows me to gain no inherent bonuses from attributes, but in exchange, I can ignore my intelligence. This build actually has a huge intelligence problem, and I just don't really know how to fix it. Mostly it's because the crit damage gem requires 114. But you'll see that Magic Find gear really limits your potential and what you can do to fix your character, as we're wearing a blue item, a white item, and then a pretty much Assassin's Garb, and then I guess you can technically get it on your chest piece. Actually, you can't because it's evasion based. But basically, there's no way to really fix your attributes, so that's why I'm using Supreme Ostentation. It could be argued that I could technically take it nodes and drop this stuff, but not really sure. I haven't really min-maxed the build fully, but this is just to give you a general idea of what you need to do. Now, for the aura, I am running Sovereignty because I am running Determination. Without Determination, I feel like the build is just way too squishy, and this does allow me to get some basic amounts of armor, and that does stop you from getting one-shotted a lot of times. Now, in terms of the large clusters, I am running these 35% effect, life, LE res, chaos res clusters. Ideally, you would want attack speed on the suffix, but it's pretty hard to get that. I am running quick getaway and pressure points for the most damage possible. 2x ricochet clusters, and I do have a CB jewel in one of these things. And I am running a Megalomaniac. I have found that Blast Freeze has made it a lot safer for mapping. And Spiked Concoction gives you more flask effect. So this is actually huge because it allows you to get Alchemist Genius whenever you use a flask. Now for the Watcher side, I am using something to convert my cold damage. So you have 40% conversion here and 40% here, which is 80% conversion, and then you get a little bit of conversion left over from your Headhunter buffs. Now right now I have a problem in that I'm unable to fix my mana gain on hit issue. So I'm actually taking points on a tree. This gives me 15 life gain on hit. And without life gain on hit, the build feels very, very squishy. And right here, I have a mana gain on hit in order to allow me to do no leech maps. There's probably a better way of doing it, perhaps, but haven't really thought about it too much. But basically, you can see here, that's pretty much the basic tree. And then the masteries, we have cold conversion mastery, we have life mastery. Technically, can get another life mastery here if we really wanted to get more life. I do think if you're able to bump up the HP to 4k, it would feel a lot better. And I do think that's something that you can consider doing. But overall, the build does have enough damage to do Delimir, and it does feel okay to play, but it is a lot sketchier, and we're going to go over why right now. So you might be wondering, can I actually play this on a budget? And the answer is no. Headhunter is pretty much mandatory. The build is not strong enough with only inspired learnings, and it's pretty much due to the duration of the buffs. Headhunter actually gives you the buffs at 60 seconds. Inspired learning gives you one mod at 20 seconds, so it's a lot worse, especially in today's era where you can't rely on Beyond and other league mechanics to just spawn a billion rare monsters. So Headhunter is better than ever before if you're trying to magic find. And you really have to depend on Legion, Harbinger, Abyss, or Ambush in order to spawn enough rares. And sometimes you're able to get 35 plus buffs, so that's why I'm using Legion. Legion is probably one of the best ways of getting monsters on your map, and I don't think it's even debatable. If you're doing Legions, Headhunter is absolutely king, and you pretty much need Legion to get enough buffs. And the biggest change to me is that Headhunter no longer provides enough defensive bonuses. You can see that it got nerfed on max res, so you pretty much lost 10 max fire res, 10 max cold res, 10 max lightning res, and no longer has 60% less damage if you have not been hit recently. So this thing was probably huge in terms of survivability. And then you don't have chance to block anymore or block spell damage. You no longer have 2 maximum endurance charges. You now lose 20% of your physical damage reduction, and then you lose another endurance charge on top of that. And then you no longer have 30% reduced elemental damage. So basically, Headhunter has been completely trashed by the Arch Nemesis nerfs, and it's kind of sad. And what this means is that mapping is very stressful while magic finding. You can no longer pretty much just AFK and everything and never die. You actually have to play the game and actually play pretty well in order to survive while doing magic finding maps. Now, overall, I do think that Kinetic Blast could also be pretty good in Crimson Temple. But if you ever lose your Headhunter buffs and you have a rare alive, you can pretty much kiss the map goodbye because you will completely be unable to clear the map. Now, magic finding is extremely stressful due to the continued nerfs to Headhunter and beyond. Gone are the days you can just stand at the start of Crimson Temple, get 30 Headhunter buffs immediately, and pretty much be immortal for the whole map. And whether that's a good or bad thing that is removed, it's up to you. It depends on if you like a lot of character interaction. Now, I do think magic finding is stronger than ever before because of the current meta with finding God Touch, as you find a bunch of divines every time you encounter Solaris, Lunaris, or Shakira. And if you want any proof here, this is pretty much me just playing the game. And I actually
Gotten that yet?
accidentally killed.
Touching so long. I
That
got
was-
like so many shitty gods today. It was crazy. Oh, who had a shitty god? I took everything back. I said.
So pretty much I was complaining about how I haven't found a God Touch in so long, and then I ran into this, and they dropped 5 divines. It's probably one of my best ones yet. And this one could have easily have dropped like 8 divines, because you see that it got converted. Some of the Exalted Orb. I think this Exalted Orb actually got doubled by the Shrine. But basically, you can see MF culling is stronger than ever. And if I actually have a document where I will probably go over it in the next video where I pretty much track how many Divine Orbs I found. But you do get a lot of benefits from running it. And you will find God Touch every like 10 or 20 maps that you run. But there's no such thing as budget magic find. I would not do it. If you want to do a magic finding character, you have to invest into it. And you have to have a Headhunter pretty much. And it does pay out in the end, and it does make the juicing actually sustainable to some degree. But it is what it is. Magic finding is not really the same as before. But I do think bow is the best now, and I do think that Headhunter is 100% mandatory. But even with the Headhunter, you will still struggle at times. But thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you find more Mirrors, Exalts, and Mage Bloods than me, and I will put the PoE down in the description for my Magic Find character if you want to copy it. And see you next time. Bye!